Egypt all over the front of the papers right around the world, I suspect, Elena.
Yes, this cartoon in the National pretty much sums it up, Stuart. You've got protesters there marching under a big sign where Tahrir Square has been crossed out and replaced with Square One. It does look like protesters in Egypt back there, a lot of papers are saying this Tuesday. Here in The Guardian, they've taken 4 different Egyptian journalists and asked them for their take on the violence coming back to Egypt's streets now. And one actually suggests that this might be a pretext by the military, saying they might be encouraging protests to then give themselves an excuse to repress again. The riot police will then leave Tahrir Square and the military will themselves march in again, very much like they did in February, the paper says, and kind of position themselves as delivering Egypt from chaos. Another journalist they talked to there says that Egyptian politics has polarised itself rather between secularists on the one side and Islamists on the other. But while both groups see their own electoral advantage in pushing towards these upcoming elections, both have forgotten about all the political prisoners languishing in Egyptian jails, as if, the contributor says, that could be postponed, that issue.
As you're saying, some of the papers are very worried that the revolution has been let down. But where can it go from here? What do analysts think might or should happen next?
Well, a number of voices in Egypt are starting to call for those elections to be postponed. Some leftist candidates have stopped campaigning, saying the whole process has been discredited. But look at this piece in The Atlantic. It's a strong argument for why they should not be postponed, saying that to start with, the Islamists, who are most likely to win at the moment, would see that as an attack on them, and that might actually radicalise the Islamists in Egypt. They say it might be easy for some leftist groups, because they're worried about an Islamist victory, to fall into the temptation of calling for those elections to be postponed. But democratically, it would be a disaster. They need some government that has a mandate from the Egyptian people. And the Arabist editor also the editor of that blog takes up that view in his post. But he calls for a civilian transitional government to be implemented as soon as possible, saying that no election process can really go ahead under the current situation because whatever result it turns up would be seen as illegitimate by a lot of the protesters. So he wants someone respected like Mohammed al-Baradei, but not necessarily him, to take control.
OK, let's talk about the super committee in the US, or the not-so-super committee, I think, as a lot of the US media are dubbing it. They failed to reach an agreement about the budget agreement, haven't they?
Exactly so. There's an interesting article in the Huffington Post, actually, about different ways that this story could be perceived. 7 headlines you won't see about the super committee, it's titled. Now, one of their ideas is that this actually is a victory for the Occupy movement, that by putting so much emphasis on the division of wealth, the unequal division of wealth in American society, they've put off Democratic legislators from agreeing to cuts to Social Security and Medicare. So, because they knew that now there's more left-wing opinion in America with whom that would play very badly, which has been given a voice by the Occupy movement. They also reckon that lots of business leaders might be happy those cuts didn't happen because they want ordinary Americans to have money in their pocket that they can spend to create growth. And they also point out that actually 3/4 of Republican voters, polls say, were also against those cuts. So according to that article, it's really an extremist Republican fringe that wanted to make that happen.
And finally, you put out an article which is about encouraging Chinese and Indian parents to actually want baby girls instead of boys.
Yeah, there's a big democratic gap within those two countries, as you know, because they so much want boys. Apparently, even in America, 54% of couples say they'd rather have a boy. So the feminist website Jezebel has asked ad agencies to come up with a campaign to encourage parents to want to have a girl. Now, they've got some different ideas. Some of them are a bit more conservative, saying things like girls are more communicative and collaborative and so on. And another's, like that slogan you just saw there, has gone for boys are 76% more likely to set something you love on fire. Quite where they got that statistic from, I'm not entirely sure.
Whatever the thing that they're going to set on fire is, as it were.
Yes, some of them are quite funny. They've got big posters of female comedians like Tina Fey under the slogan, "My dad wanted a boy because he thought girls weren't funny." But the article, the feminist website, does point out that it might not be the parents themselves that don't want daughters. It might be discrimination in wider society they're worried about, and that's a bit harder to attack.
Excellent. I don't need to worry about it. I've got 3 girls myself, so there we go.
You can write an ad campaign.
I could. I'll do my best. Right, Elena, thanks very much. Elena there with the international papers here on France 24. Headlines then. Egypt's cabinet offers to quit as the extreme